Estranged is a Meng Shishi novel. This is an audiobook made by fans for other fans. Disclaimer. The main couple of the story is made up of two men. If you don't like it, don't listen. Thank you. Remember, subscribe and click the bell to stay updated on all the new releases. Enjoy. Chapter 10. You are actually still infatuated with your teacher. As Ch10 was saying these words, he was closely observing the changes in Changming's expression. And his expression indeed became a bit more complicated. Ch10 knew he had guessed it right, but now it was hard for him not to remember some old grievances. After all, this old thief still thought no one could be compared to Yun Wisai. Ch10 remembered how he was trembling from fear those years, practicing diligently days and nights in order to please his shifu. But Zhifang Changming not only didn't have a high opinion of him, but even made excessive demands all around. In the end, because Ch10 started practicing demonic techniques, Changming drove him out of his sect. Ch10 couldn't help feeling murderous intentions again. A good chance indeed, this old thief is close at hand, so Ch10 could easily raise his arm and destroy him. One death would end so many troubles. This would make his inner demons disappear and maybe even help him progress in his cultivation. Changming only needed to take a glance at him to understand his thoughts became dangerous once again. Those who practice demonic ways always had their minds affected by demons. At best, they lost their tempers quickly, at worst, their characters changed a lot. For instance, Ch10 tended to extremes from birth, and the higher his cultivation rose, the harder it was for him to control himself. Now it came to the point where he needed to drain human vessels to advance in his skills and suppress his madness. If you keep behaving this way, your body will break one day. Even if you have an infinite supply of human vessels, you won't be able to drain them completely, because after all it is not your own cultivation. Bearing in his mind their history, Changming tried to point him to the shore that was just behind his back. There is only one way to save you now, and that is to disperse your cultivation completely and let you start anew. Even if it is hard to build your cultivation layer upon layer, it is still better than clinging to your ways. Shut up. If it wasn't for your selfishness, why would I go as far as to start demonic cultivation? Ch10's eyes turned bright red. This was a sign of him being possessed by his demons. He couldn't control himself anymore, ferociously grabbed Changming by his chin with one hand and pressed him against a pillar, almost crushing his chin. They stood face to face, their noses almost coming in contact. Changming could even feel his breath. Stinking of blood breath. This was one of a kind feeling. The smell of fresh blood filled the room, assaulting his nostrils at once. This was the smell of blood and essence of those human vessels that Ch10 had devoured over the years, mostly the souls of those who had died unjustly and bore grudges. Of course, his cultivation had an unparalleled growth, but the terrible backlashes flared up over and over again, and he was sure to have an ending in line with Changming's words. Changming saw Ch10's mad bloodthirsty expression and his soul concealed in the depth of his eyes. That timid and introverted soul from the past that now became paranoid and fierce. You were. His chin hurt badly, his throat was also grabbed, it was hard for him to talk, yet Changming opened his mouth. I admit I was too stern with you, but I treated my disciples equally without discrimination. Be it Yun Wisai or Sun Buku, I never treated them with leniency. Your aptitude is higher, so you should be even more hard-working. If you followed the path I paved for you, you could have become a first-class master. I don't need this first class. Ch10 interrupted him and exerted even more force. Changming couldn't stand the pain and frowned. I want to get above the others, be unrivaled, extraordinary, everything Yun Wisai accomplished, I can accomplish too. Zhufang Changming, why are you pretending to be righteous in front of me? When you rebelled against Daoism and Buddhism, didn't you start demonic cultivation as well, and didn't you advance in it? Yet you value the broom because it's your own and refuse to pass your techniques to me. I hate you to the very marrow of my bones, but I couldn't defeat you, so I could only admire you from afar for so many years. Back then, just when he had thought he would defeat Zhufang Changming soon with his own strength to prove the other was wrong, Changming took away this hope. But now, his soft and fragile neck was just under Zhou Qi's hand, he could even feel Changming's pulse with his fingertips. He only needed to use a bit of force to accomplish this long-cherished wish. His inner demons were on a rampage, his thoughts contradicted each other. When he was almost ready to make a move, a ray of white light suddenly broke out from his opponent's sleeve, so dazzling that it made him close his eyes for a moment. But in this moment of hesitation, the white light abruptly turned into a giant dragon, soaring up with a roar. It opened its ferocious large mouth and jumped at Zhou Qi at once. Zhou Qi was taken by surprise and subconsciously recoiled from it. Even though the giant dragon was not corporeal, it unexpectedly managed to shake the whole room. When it raised its head, pieces of tile on the rooftop were broken, a tremendous noise filled the place, and the floor tiles were shattered into small pieces. He Yingyuan, who was guarding the room outside the doors, had long since disappeared without a trace, and no one dared to come closer to observe the scene. Zhou Qi grabbed the air, and a long black sword appeared in his hand. He swung it toward the dragon that pounced at him, and the black glowing sword met the roaring dragon. When the black and the white rays fused, it didn't resemble the primal chaos at all, it was like a clash of incompatible surging waves. Boom! The roar of the giant dragon shook the earth and swayed the mountain, making the whole peak tremble. The brilliant rays gradually waned. Zhou Qi slowly landed on the floor, dropping his long sword. Blood was dripping from the corners of his mouth. The giant dragon turned into ice crystal fog, broke into bits and pieces and dispersed in the air. In the dense mist, two people that were once a master and his disciple were looking at each other, and there was no need to say much to let anyone guess these two had both gratitudes and grudges from their past. Changming had blood dripping from the corners of his mouth as well, but stood up straight, and Zhou Qi couldn't measure how injured he was. Could it be that this old thief was actually speaking the truth, that he has already returned to the void, and now could turn the void into substance? When he thought about all the things that had ever happened with Changming, Zhou Qi, even if he refused to voice it, admired his shifu almost to the point where this feeling was engraved in his bones and imprinted on his heart. He used to believe that he had grown stronger, so this admiration had changed completely, even turning into disdain. But at this moment he realized with astonishment that this admiration, awe, and reverence still existed, but hidden so deep in his heart that they had almost deceived him. Zhou Qi gasped for breath, finding his state of mind completely clear all of a sudden. It has been a long time since he had thought about a problem so calmly and deeply. Every time when he was possessed by demons, he was ignorant of his actions, as if drunk or entranced. This fast recovery might have had something to do with their battle. "What did you do?" he whispered. Changming indifferently clasped his hands behind his back. There was just a simple clearing heart mantra hidden in the ice dragon. I have already explained it to you a long time ago, balance is the way of heavens. If you take something you don't own, you will eventually be punished. I entered demonic cultivation to take the cream while discarding the dross. In my opinion, draining human vessels is exactly that dross of demonic cultivation. You, on the other hand, took this wrong shortcut to achieve quick success. You took the wrong road by mistake and should turn round now, mend the fold after a sheep is lost. It is not too late yet. Although we don't share a master-disciple relationship now, I still root for your success. Ch10 had been staring at him for half a day, and then suddenly burst into laughter. I would have never thought that the formidable Zhifang Changming could say such words to a disciple. He remembered very well what Changming said back then. You took the wrong road by mistake, but refused to repent and mend your ways. From now on, don't call me your teacher. After all, even if we share a master-disciple relationship, we are still strangers. You're on your own. Ch10 was dissatisfied. He didn't want to hear such words from Changming, so he just turned around and went away without looking back. As he was looking back, scenes of the past were leaping before his eyes. The harsh words and stern looks of that old thief from his memories, the wrinkles between his brows, he could never forget them. Changming looked calm. He even raised the corners of his mouth. I am a human, not a god, so I was too violent and stern those years. Do I really look like a flawless person who makes no mistakes in your eyes? Ki, you are really still too infatuated with your teacher. It's been so many years, yet you still look up to me as if I am a god. Ch10 almost became possessed by his demons again because of those shameless words. Clan Master. Seeing that the sounds coming from there had stopped long ago, some people finally dared come closer. Su Jingxian walked unhurriedly behind a few other peak masters. She didn't want to confront the troubles ahead of her at all. Everybody knew that the Jiangxia clan's head had an unstable character and was extremely moody. She didn't want to repeat the unfortunate fate of that person. Much to her surprise, that human vessel from the Xixian sect who was supposed to be dead was actually standing in front of the clan master, almost unharmed, safe and sound. He only had some blood on the corners of his mouth. The huge building was heavily damaged, and broken tiles were chaotically scattered on the ground around. This was the source of the noise that drew their attention. But there was no doubt that person had no trace of cultivation. She had checked it herself. He could hardly even capture a chicken. How could he oppose Ch10? Let alone oppose, Ch10 could probably take him down to the ground with one finger. Could it be that the clan master was possessed? That sounded even less possible, since all the others who met him in this state were drained of their blood and essence, leaving behind nothing but corpses. How could this one remain unharmed? In Ch10's eyes, all the bystanders were only empty shells. He could only see Changming. His gaze was ice cold, like the one of a statue. His expression was blank, not moved by the eight winds. Without Ch10's orders, no one dared come and capture Changming. They were stuck in this situation for a while. Ch10 was suddenly reminded of the past. One year, when his skills were not yet high, he was training on a ground covered with snow, and he couldn't bear the cold. He fainted after 3 days and 3 nights. When he woke up, he was lying on Zhifang Changming's bed. The latter dispersed the cold air around Ch10. When he felt some warmth coming from his strict teacher, he wanted to express his gratitude, but his teacher poured a basin of cold water on his head before Ch10 could do that. Zhifang Changming told him that Ch10's endurance was awful. He was far behind his 2 shixians. It was very possible that he could have trained for 3 months and gained no results, and that he would have to cultivate more than a year or 2 to accomplish what his shixians could accomplish in 1 month. Ch10 from that time was really just a lonely and helpless fledgling under the eyes of a powerful eagle. But this eagle not only didn't encourage and comfort him, but even pushed him off a cliff. If you don't advance in a year, stop following me as your teacher. Why was Changming heartless to the point that he didn't even resemble a human? Was he also so ruthless towards Yun Weisai and Sun Buku? If Zhufang Changming had been more patient in the past, instructed him earnestly, would he still have chosen this demonic cultivation path of no return? Zhou Qi was thinking over these questions again and again. To no avail. The events from the past have no answers. A history cannot be repeated. The waters that had flowed to the east can never return back. Su Jingxian. When he opened his mouth, unexpectedly, Zhou Qi's voice was calm. Ice cold, without a trace of rage. In her heart, Su Jingxian was crying because of her bad luck. She came last, but was still singled out by him. She could only brace herself and come out, forcing a smile beautiful as the autumn moon. Does the clan master have any instructions? Take him to the 9 layers of the abyss. Everyone's expressions changed slightly. Su Jingxian gasped. This clan master, Jingxian is afraid that she won't be able to complete this task. End of the chapter. Stay tuned for more BL.